What's the biggest red flag you have seen on a first date? Story 1. I went on a date with a woman who insisted we go to a cheesy dance bar. I hate dance bars. This was also our first date. A great place to get to know each other. Anyway, we walk in and get beers. She immediately, not an exaggeration, goes to the dance floor, finds the hottest woman there, and pours the beer on her head. No, she didn't know her, like they had a bad history. They get into a physical fight along with others, and me trying to break it up. Now, stupidly, but I don't care, what the bouncer saw was the other girl starting a fight. She and her friends got kicked out. My date, who started the fight, and I were allowed to stay. I asked her why she did that. What the? She said she wanted to own the dance floor. I didn't ditch her, but the date ended quickly and I never, ever talked to her again. Story 2. Went on a date with a girl who said she wasn't looking for anything serious. Okay, we can have fun and maybe fool around or something. Then, after a few drinks, she told me about some guy she dated and refused to sleep with because she was saving herself for marriage. Okay, we can hang out tonight and have a pleasant conversation. Then she started bashing men and insinuating we're all cheap because they always insist on splitting the bill on dates. I don't know, maybe it's because you're offering nothing besides hanging out as friends on dates. No prospect of hooking up, no prospect of a relationship. I could get the same things from my friends and they wouldn't think I owed them drinks and food. LOL. Story 3. Looked nothing like their photos. Story 4. She practiced saying her first name with my last name to see how it sounds if we get married. Yes, on the first date. Story 5. Scrolled Tinder and didn't think I noticed the reflection on her glasses. Story 6. I don't know how to describe my relationship with alcohol without sounding like an alcoholic, and then laughed. But that's okay, my entire family drinks too. It's kind of our tradition. We argue a lot. As a non-drinker, I just immediately knew that it would probably not work out with that one. The girl was in a similar field and had model-level looks, but I could never be happy with such a heavy drinker. Story 7. She treated the waitress like trash, made comments about how she was inept when the place was packed and she was the only server, complained about how long it took to get our order when they were clearly short-staffed. If you treat service people like trash, you've never worked a service job and I have no respect for that. Story 8. Asked me a question and took her phone out mid-conversation to text her friend as I was responding. This was 5 minutes into the date and I gave up from there. Story 9. He showed up drunk with a bouquet of flowers he admitted he stole from his mother's flower shop. Story 10. Introduced me to her ex of 9 years, who was visibly in his late 50s, perhaps 60s. She explained she hadn't been with him for a few years. She was 26. My mental math isn't great, so I just asked when they started dating. She very candidly told me when she was 13. She then got blackout wasted, told me how he made spicy videos of her when she was still a minor, and she made out to him. I began my egress to the bar to pay and realized she had charged drinks of his onto my credit card. I explained I was leaving as politely as I could, and she went into full hysteria. That was in the span of less than 10 minutes. Story 11. Super negative about everything and complained the entire time. I got depressed and tired just being around her. Story 12. The guy I met started every story with, "One time I got drunk," and ended it with, "And then the police arrived." He was in his late 30s, not 18. It was an instant no. Story 13. Hung out with a girl and a group of mutual friends, got her number, and asked her out. She was nice and attractive, and we just seemed to click in our limited conversations. As soon as we sat down to dinner, she asked me, "Are you saved?" And then, when I said, "What do you mean?" She went into a spiel about Jesus and Christianity, asked about my religious background, scolded me for saying I was agnostic, and then said, "I'm scared you're going to hell. You need to accept Jesus right now," all before our dinner was even served. As we ate, she continued preaching to me, and all I could think to do was nod and say I understand until it was over. As we left, I said goodbye awkwardly, and before I even got home, she had sent me a text saying, "This isn't going to work out. I need to be with someone as passionate about their faith as I am." No problem, understandable. I was just caught off guard by it all. After the previous time seeing her, it felt like a fever dream. Story 14. She constantly compared me to her ex and sat on her phone for most of the night, then expected me to pay for her 2 bottles of wine plus a really expensive meal and dessert. She asked me out, by the way, not the other way around. Story 15. She drank 5 doses and insisted she could hold her liquor. She could not. I spent the rest of the night trying to get her home safe. Story 16. Back in the pre-Google days, met a girl at the fair. Asked her out and she gave me directions to her house. Started the train tracks. Take the second left, next right, etc. Could not find her house to save my life following her directions. Ended up in an empty field. Went back to the train tracks and everywhere she said to turn left, I turned right. When she said turn right, I turned left. Found her house in the first attempt. It went downhill from there. She just went on about how she was going to be an actress, a writer, a journalist, a veteran. She meant veterinarian, a model, a singer, etc. Story 17. A girl I just met said we'd make pretty babies, and rattled off a bunch of names. That was the first and last date. Story 18. Those bursting into tears after I told them I didn't like a TV show count. Story 19. He was about 10 years older than his pictures. He didn't stop twitching the entire time, and he kept pressuring me to go back to his place. I noped the F out of there. Story 20. Had a guy who insisted on buying the most expensive pizza at the restaurant, despite my protests, then kissed my head when he walked past me to use the restroom. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront. He kissed me and then immediately tried to choke me. To be first date, last date. Story 21. She spent a significant portion of the date discussing her ex-husband, and that I was the first actual date she went on since their divorce. I still dated her for several months until she dumped me. I am not a very smart person when it comes to relationships. Story 22. We met for drinks after work, since we both work in the same industry, and she showed up with a list of interview questions. She literally had a checklist on her phone for me to fill out. I thought she was joking at first, but the questions were extremely personal, like, how many people did you sleep with? How old was the oldest? And the youngest? Have you ever done it with an animal? How much money you made the previous year? If you owned a house, a car, a boat, a plane, did you have a criminal history? Where do your parents live? Are they alive? Who did you vote for in the last election? All kinds of stuff like that. I even proposed that we could just use that as a conversation starter, and we could work through them like that as a fun way to get to know each other. I was really trying. She tells me she's not answering any of them because I am trying to date her, not the other way around. I laughed out loud thinking she was kidding, then realized she was absolutely serious. I wished her all the best in the dating world, chugged my beer, overtipped the waitress, and left. Story 23. The guy who tried to change my order with the waitress because he didn't think the drink I'd asked for was sufficiently feminine. Story 24. He angrily told me I would love his ex-wife. Proceeded to cry while talking about her. They had been divorced for 5 years. I genuinely hope he is doing better. Story 25. They won't shut up about their ex. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.